is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
All right, is that enough shop talk?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that we should probably now switch to the shop talk of what are we going to be talking about in this chapter and how quickly will it go by?
Perrin is forging a weapon to fight the last battle.
That is one way to look at it, yeah.
That's kind of how I imagine all of Perrin's stuff out in the wilderness is he's taking all of these desperate metals, troops, peoples, and forging them together into one very solid army. Now, I don't think that was taken advantage of in the way it should have been in the last battle and in the writing of the final 3 books. Right, I think Perrin's army just became one more of many armies that was kind of a bunch of misfits. But I really wanted to see him take this sort of seed of an army and say, listen, I have peoples from here, peoples from here, peoples from there. I can use them to then go out and command the rest of the armies. And while Matt would have been the planning general, right, the guy who's making all the plans and telling people where to go, Perrin would have been the sort of guy out on the field leading the charge.
Oh, can you imagine Perrin executing a plan, not understanding how it's going to work out, but just trusting Matt, trusting his childhood friend, and commanding the troops effectively through this plan that he doesn't actually understand, but his confidence in Matt is enough to carry the day, and then it all comes together like magic origami at the end, and he's just like, damn, Matt, that was fucking awesome. And only he knows how intensely brilliant it was because everyone else just trusted him the whole time. God. Yeah. I need a time machine.
And then Perrin getting all the credit for being brilliant, even though it was Matt's brilliance.
It was just Perrin's confidence, just Perrin's people skills, just Perrin's leadership, and just his trust in Matt. And the entire last battle hinges on Matt and Perrin's relationship. Oh god, that would have been so good.
Which should then mirror the battle that Rand is having with the Dark One.
Of course. His two friends tag teaming, defeating the armies of the Dark One while Rand single-handedly takes down the Dark One himself. That would be the perfect culmination of what those 3 boys had always been doing together.
With Rand in the cavern supported by Egwene and Nynaeve.
Which would have made so much more sense. And then, Moraine could have been off blasting shit and, helping out with land and stuff because, at long last, it could be her chance to protect him or some shit, you know?
As the new Amyrlin seat.
Oh, my God!
Okay, I have... Now that we're getting to these final 3 books, there is a final 3 books that have occurred in my head that don't exactly match up. I mean, obviously, I'm using a lot of what's in those final 3 books, but there's definitely a... Seth Jacobson director's cut that has occurred in my head where I've definitely added scenes, refilmed a few shots, cut a lot and put together things in a slightly different order to create an ending that, is headcanon, but I guess what it is I have to headcanon the version that Robert Jordan would have given us.
Mm-hmm. It's your fanfic of what you think RJ would have written.
Right. Exactly. Which is, of course, nothing like what he would have actually given us, because he would have given us a whole third thing. But in my head.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but
never know.
So much was set up.
We could produce that.
In these 11 books, especially in this book, right? He was gearing up for the last battle, and you can see him setting up these pins, some of which got knocked down, some of which got left behind or used as bludgeons.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think everyone has a right to rewrite the last 3 books in their own imagining of what RJ would have done. Sanderson is the one who got given the opportunity to have that become the official published canon. But everyone has a right to their own version. Mm-hmm. Sanderson just got to have his published, that's all.
And not... Especially having done the Spoilers Project, right? Having really broken down every single plot line and where I think they're all going. I think there's a certain amount of I couldn't have done it before, but now I feel I could look at these plot lines and be I think I know where they're going with this and come up with interesting solutions for them.
I mean, we could produce that.
I'm just saying.
It might have to be an entirely in-house, not for public release project, but we could still produce it for that select few.
Well, I still want to rewrite, the slog into a single book.
Well, that's different. That's just like a collage editorial project.
Sure.
This is like completely retailoring.
Anyway, it wouldn't be any better. I'm not a better writer than Brandon Sanderson. I don't pretend to be.
No, it would be a bit more one of those like docudrama kind of history things where they like have the reenactments cut together with the talking heads sort of things. I think it'd be kind of like that. Or like having where the director's talking over the shit, It wouldn't be truly the book, but it would be, the spoilers version of what should have been cut together with the actual scenes that actually would have made the cut.
We'll definitely have to talk more about that. Shall we make a deal?
Yeah, let's move in to the actual chapter 4 with the Seanchan helmet for the icon.
Right, because Perrin's making a deal with the Seanchan, so I feel like
deal with the devil.
Yeah. And there is a little bit of that with the horns on the helmet,
oh,
right?
Yeah.
There's definitely got to be a reference here to making a deal with the devil. All right, I'm reading this in. Perrin sat Stepper's saddle a little back from the edge of the trees and watched the large meadow where red and blue wildflowers were beginning to poke through the winter-brown grass that the now-vanished snows had flattened into a mat. This stand was mainly leatherleaf that kept its broad, dark foliage through the winter, but only a few small, pale leaves decorated the branches of the sweet gums among them. The dun stallion stamped a hoof with an impatience Perrin shared, though he let none of it show. The sun stood almost overhead. He had been waiting there nearly an hour. A stiff, steady breeze blew out of the west, down the meadow towards him. That was good. Every so often his gauntleted hand stroked a nearly straight branch hacked from an oak, thicker than his forearm and more than twice as long, that lay across the saddle in front of him. For half its length he had shaved two sides flat and smooth, the meadow ringed by huge oaks and leatherleaf, towering pine, and shorter sweet gum was less than 600 paces wide, though longer than that. The branch should be broad enough. He'd planned for every possibility he could imagine. The branch fit more than one.
Ominous,
yeah. But that's the branch that gets shot with arrows, right? He's trying to make it broad enough to make it a good target.
Yep. He made it broad and bright. I think that's also part of why he shaved it. It's flat, okay. But also it's bright with new wood, so it'd be really easy for the guys to because he is asking for them to shoot more or less at his head, just up by 4
it's
feet.
A huge risk. It's a giant risk, right? And I think that's part of why it pays off is right. The balls on himself to essentially make himself a target says that his archers are good enough to hit that reliably enough that he's willing to do it as a demonstration and risk his own life.
Yeah, but he makes it less of a risk by having it be a flat, bright board rather than a round, dark branch.
I also have to wonder if there's any channeling involved to make sure that the arrows hit the target. Probably not, because it's the Two Rivers bowmen.
It's easy range for them. He picked the best he had, but also he made sure that they weren't shooting at the edge of their skill. I haven't quite figured out how the branch figures into other scenarios than the one that actually happens.
I'm imagining him clubbing his way out of the situation by hitting people over the head with the branch. He's like...
Literally, as I was saying that, I was like, he would just hit them. That's what he would do with it.
The branch should be broad enough. It's thick enough to use as a fucking club. Like, yes.
I could break someone's skull
with this. There's more than one situation that I'm going with.
Okay. Because he doesn't have to draw it, because it's already going to be in his hand, and they won't expect it as a weapon. So.
Yeah.
Okay, that's funny. As I'm asking the question, I was like, "Oh, duh." It's Perrin. He'll just hit them with it.
He's from the Two Rivers. He's gonna pull a Nynaeve.
Exactly. And that one time he ripped a chair apart and just beat a gray man to death.
Totally.
Yeah.
A stave, as they call it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's got that, and he's sitting there, and then we do a nice long panning shot of the people with him, and it feels like exposition again, except that we already have had our exposition on this plot line, so it's just RJ indulging himself in some textured writing.
This is just one thing, like Berelaine. This is the good Berelaine. This is the Berelaine who's not trying to seduce him. However, she's being more effective at seducing him by not trying than she ever did by trying.
which would infuriate her no end if she realized
Oh,
it.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But it's further supports the idea that RJ / the pattern was setting up a plausible place for Perrin to fall apart and come together again if Fael did have to die for plot reasons. Like, okay, Berylane has finally backed off to the point that you wouldn't hate it if Perrin's subconscious attraction to her was allowed to bloom into something more in the throes of grief. Like, she's becoming acceptable to the audience now.
And I also think that at some point she needs to become acceptable to Fael, because I think they need to work together to manage Perrin's empire. I mean, he's going to be going from Two Rivers to Saldea to, you know, basically everything in between, because there's nothing in between the two that he can't, you know, conquer. And that's just, he's going to have a giant empire that's going to span half the continent the size of Andor underneath him.
Yeah, and he has no practice in royal administration. He needs an army of people, and 2 women both trained from childhood to do that work. Great place to start for that army.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's the Min vision. He needs to have the hawk and the falcon each perched on his shoulder. That is part of his balance, right? He needs the wolf and the man, the axe and the hammer, the 2 birds. He needs the 2 of them to help him be the most effective. And my God, his army runs so much better once Fael and Berylane start not being at dagger points, once they start working together, once they start realizing that they should have been friends this whole fucking time.
We see a little of the dysfunction in this chapter.
Yeah, a little bit.
To begin with, Anura has been visiting Massima behind Berylane's back, right? That's not a good thing.
Yeah, we get reminded of that there's a rift there with Berylane and her closest advisor, a rift centered on Massima, which also mirrors what's happening with Aram a page later.
Yeah.
Right? Massima is the source of a lot of fractures in Perrin's camp for various reasons.
Well, because he's been following him this whole time, corrupting and being insidious. And, you know, I mean, he's an idea, and it's very hard to wipe out an idea.
Yeah. Go with V for Vendetta sort of imagery there. But yeah, I mean, I honestly feel like Massima has the potential to become another Eridhall-like force.
Yes.
Larger than himself, immortal, bound to something but not able to die. You know, like the Wormtongue character from Eridhall. Like, there was a person who started that in Eridhall. Like, I feel like Massima has the potential to be that person and create another Eridhall.
There was no contact between Fane and Massima, even though they were both in Faldar at the same time. As far as we know, they didn't have any real contact, right?
No. There's the potential that Massima may have guarded him at some point, but not on page.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not in any way that's actually given weight by RJ. But yeah, he has that energy too, and it's kind of weird that, you know, he wasn't one of the guards. But I believe both of the guards that interact with Egwene and Matt and Rand both go away in Great Hunt and get killed during the course of the Great Hunt.
Yeah.
And neither of them was Massima. Massima was never part of that. He was just another cranky borderlander.
If anything, I would say he's the Dark One's version, right? Because he's influenced by Grendel. He's being, you know, corrupted by the Dark One. So, you know, those don't tend to live together in the same place.
Yeah, he is more like Fane in that regard, where he is explicitly the way he is for dark manipulation reasons, rather than Eridhall being not dark inspired. He's homebrewed. Eridhall is entirely homebrew. Massima, unfortunately, has a little something store-bought going on.
He's just nuts. That's all there is to it. He's just nuts. He saw the dragon and went, "Oh my God, I believe."
Right, but now Grandal has twisted that into something more potent than it had to be.
Totally. And so you see Aram here, like, quoting the prophet says this, prophet says that. You know, it's like, well, if you like him so much, why don't you go marry him?
Right, and Perrin's just super irresponsible here. He's like, oh yeah, Balwer told me that I have a massive security leak in my camp, but I didn't think it would matter.
No, you're being hot-headed lately. Why don't you chill here for a minute, right? Like,
oh my God, and then he's,
yeah.
He thinks about how you have to, like, know your people and use your people well and be careful. Also, fuck that kid. It's just like, Perrin, he is your age, and you are giving him not a tenth the respect you give every other person in this camp. Like, it drives me nuts that he actively gives Aram less care than everyone else he feels responsible for.
So, help me sort through the banners.
Okay.
All right, we got Two Rivers guys, right? We've got Leof and Todd. Mm-hmm. Leof carries Perrin's banner. Todd carries the Eagle of Manetheren. Todd seems to be the happier to be carrying the Eagle of Manetheren. Leof seems to be slightly less happy that he's carrying Perrin's banner. Mm-hmm. What is going on there? Why? What? And they fought over who was going to carry which banner. Why is there disagreement? Why do they care? Why is it because they think Perrin's been cheating on Fail, and so they don't want to carry Perrin's personal banner?
I thought that Perrin was being overly dramatic by assuming that neither wanted to carry the wolf head. I assumed that they were fighting over who got to carry Manetheren. I just figured that the Manetheren banner had more pride to it, and so they were fighting over that rather than playing hot potato with Perrin's banner. I thought that was the wrong take, but I mean, you and Perrin and Vuji and Pants are all agreeing on it being the more negative thing of them not wanting to carry Perrin's banner because Perrin has been sleeping around supposedly that one time, kind of, maybe. So maybe that is what's going on. Certainly not how I took it, but maybe I'm wrong.
And then there's one other data point here. It's later when he gives the banner of Manetheren. So Todd looks stricken when he gives up the Manetheren banner.
Well, that, I think, is because you're giving up on Manetheren to slavers? Not even to the Andorran crown, which would be insult enough, but to the fucking Seanchan? I mean, not really giving it up, but, like, he's giving up claim to it. Like, giving up claim to it is something that none of the Two Rivers people want. They are all very, very devoted to the idea that Manetheren is going to rise again. So to give it away is like, what are you doing selling my firstborn into slavery? Like, that's the kind of stricken I'm imagining he has.
And also, if you go into the fact that, like, oh my god, he's giving away the banner that we were actually proud of, and we're stuck with the banner that is of a cheating lord, right? Like, that idea of, like, that's like, okay.
All we have left is your personal pride, and we don't even respect you properly anymore.
Right.
It seems a little bit like maybe we don't need lords in the Two Rivers, which, like, Perrin would agree with, but, like, also not on the eve of battle, please.
Not right now. After I rescue Fael, please.
Yeah.
And that is what's keeping, I think, this band together mostly is the desire to rescue Fael, because they're more attached to her than they are to him in some ways. Because
she's more attached to Manetheren than he is. She's the one who sees the power of making the Two Rivers into the heart of an empire called Manetheren again. She's the one stoking those flames, getting people to think that that's a good thing. Yeah, they want her back. They want the banner and they want her. And Perrin's a necessary hinge in the whole relationship, but, like, they're not super jazzed to have just him, Sans empire and Sans wife.
And she's a much better leader.
So much better. So much better.
The social contract she's better fulfilling.
She has been taught about the concept of a social contract. Perrin is like, a what? He understands the concept, but he's never had it spelled out for him, whereas Fael explicitly had to write a paper on it in 4th grade.
And Leif Torfin, I've found 3 mentions of him. He was in The Shadow Rising way back when, book 4, right? When Perrin was in the Two Rivers doing his Two Rivers thing. And then this chapter in chapter 26. Thought he was in more than that, but...
That sounds like a super, like, normal Two Rivers gang name.
Yeah.
3 times?
3 times, that's it.
Once in book 4 and twice in
book 11? Yep.
Dude. RJ. Come on, man.
There's a lot of guys in the Two Rivers. It's good background. It's good background.
It does speak to the value, to the power of his world building that I'm like, yeah, we've heard of him a million times. Like, I've filled in that name in my head in all the little shadowy back bits of crowds. Like, he made me believe it without actually putting it down that often. It's kind of impressive.
Also, he's a Finn, right? So there's some weird time-bendy stuff going on with that.
Sure. Nat Torfin.
Torfin, sure. Yeah. There's the Aelfin, the Eelfin, and the Torfin.
That is how that works, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's I'm all right. So new theory. Okay.
Yeah, what are you smoking today? Can I get some of that?
Just like the one power, the male has a male half and a female half, and then the true power is united. There's the fins, that's the male and the female half of the fins, and then you've got Leof Torfin, who's the united version of the fins, and he exists in the real world to channel the karma of. Okay, I'm done.
No, absolutely not.
No, it's ridiculous, but why else would Jordan put Finn on there? Come on, Jordan, come on.
Okay, so basically we're standing around being anxious about if the Seanchan will or will not show up. Are they going to ambush us? Is Berlin in danger? Whining, hand-wringing. And then they do arrive, so we can have our damn meeting.
Yeah, he sees Talonvor riding in with a bunch of people.
I wanted to point out that their armor is vividly striped in red, yellow, and blue. And I just want us all to imagine these very serious, very scary soldier people with their insectile helmets, but they are in, like,
American
McDonald's
flag.
Funhouse colors. Like, what is happening? Why
Wait, red,
is this
yellow,
like,
blue? Okay, yeah.
What in the, like, Swiss Guard on acid is happening? Like, I love it. I just, sometimes I imagine them all as being, like, very in dark colors and very somber and stuff. And then I actually slow down enough to read, like, red, yellow, and blue.
Right. I picture the dark green that they talk about for the Seekers, right? That sort of dark green, almost black.
Yeah, the Deathwatch Guard.
The Deathwatch Guard.
The green and red, but the green is so black, it's so dark, it's almost black.
Black. And that's sort of what I picture all the Seanchan in, but it's really not.
It's really not.
Yeah.
Truly. They're very liberal with their use of color. It's kind of like in the Roman Empire. See, I did it. I got another Roman Empire reference in.
Okay. You're just always thinking about it, aren't you?
Perpetually. I was listening to more podcasts about it today.
Wheel of Time is my Roman Empire.
The Roman Empire is my Wheel of Time. But in the Roman Empire, they used color all over the place. And in modern times, we have nothing but the whitewashed marble.
Yep.
For various reasons of erosion and idiots with power hoses. But that's not at all what it looked like in Roman times. The Roman world was an explosion of color that just the ruins do not hint at all.
Yeah, they painted the statues. It's like...
And the buildings.
Imagine if...
The friezes.
They dug up our cartoons, but because of the chemical process, all of the color had bled out, and the cartoons just looked black and white.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Like, that's sort of what we're doing to the statues. Is like, that's never how it was meant to be viewed. That's never how it was viewed. And it is the bones of what's there, but you're missing so much context and so much color and so much entertainment.
Yeah, huge amounts of information are missing.
And they did like chemical tests, right? Because they could figure out what chemicals were on the stone, and they could figure out what color it was and what the paints were made out of and stuff like that. Yeah.
And some pieces did have little bits of pigment left on them. There have been artifacts found that do still have enough to be able to be like, no, we're not making this up. This is a real thing.
And we have written descriptions as well, right?
Like, and written descriptions,
yeah,
yes.
Right.
Absolutely. There's many, many lines of evidence. But yeah, there were people in the 19th century who thought that the paint was nasty, that they should wash it all off. And archaeologists are forever angry about that. Okay,
so he leaves Aram behind, right? Basically saying you're too hot-headed. I don't want you going back to Messima.
Also Anura, because you're an Aes Sedai. Why do you think you can negotiate with Seanchan? They know what Aes Sedai look like.
Yeah, they think you're animals. They're going to treat you like an animal. They would never negotiate with you. Not helpful. Also, you've been hanging out with Messima too, so double corrupt.
Also that, yeah.
And we spent many amount of time talking about why Anura is meeting with Messima, and we get that answer later on that's like, oh, she thought she could negotiate with him and bring a deal, in secret. I don't buy it, but I don't have a better answer.
People can just be wrong.
Yeah.
That's possible.
I think that's just what Jordan's trying to say here is, yeah, she's just wrong. She just thought she could. He's just more insane than she thought.
Aes Sedai arrogance.
Yep.
He really wanted to make sure that came through. I did want to highlight just this one line as the two parties come together because I thought it was just really pretty. They met in the middle of the meadow, surrounded by wildflowers and silence. The tension of two warring sides that have never talked, that are on hostile terms. They're maybe working outside of their command structure, going a little bit around the chain of command to make this meeting even happen. And like anyone could turn this into a bloodbath at any time. And there's just so much tension just oozing off the page. And they're just surrounded by wildflowers and silence. And it's just very vivid picture in my head.
It reminds me a little bit of Elaine meeting with the Borderlanders.
Yeah, the amount of potential military conflict that she just walks into and just navigates. Yeah.
Or am I thinking of Egwene?
Oh, I mean both, honestly. Because Egwene's on the lake. Are you thinking of the one on the lake?
I'm thinking of the one on the lake,
okay,
yeah.
That's Egwene. But it really is the same with Elaine when she's going with Birgitta only. She goes as an Aes Sedai.
Right.
And then they're like, but we're actually talking to the queen, aren't we? And she's like, well, yeah, kind of a little bit. So, like, I think in both cases, that is comparable to this. But this is perhaps the most openly hostile of all these examples.
Right. So he meets with Tylee.
Yeah, Talanvor does our introductions to Banner General Tylee Kirgan and also Captain Bakayar Mishima, her sidekick. Mm-hmm. Who will die sadly.
I like Mishima.
He's cool.
Yeah.
He suffers the ultimate kind of like red shirt death to like let you know of an attack. Like he does the thing where she's talking to him and then he doesn't respond and she turns and there's an arrow through his neck and he's like actively staring at her and dying. Like it's an amazing epic sidekick red shirt beginning of a battle kind of death. He's very cool. He's all scarred. He does a lot of the talking for her. They've clearly worked together for a very long time. Like they're a good team.
I also like the way his name sounds in the audiobook, Mishima.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's just a good name.
Easy to like the way that Michael Kramer describes him and voices him. And Tylee's awesome too. So of course everyone around her I'm predisposed to like.
Yeah, and this is where, Jordan's like, oh, by the way, you're going to enjoy because there are people in every empire you're going to like. Not everybody, just because they support an evil empire doesn't necessarily mean they're otherwise a bad person.
Right. The complexities of the human experience.
Yeah. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism, and yet we have to live under the system. Do I think we're bad people? No. Do I create a lot of terrible waste that's going to last for millennia and release way more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than I should? Yeah.
I mean, this feels a little bit more like there were Nazis who were loving fathers in between their shifts at the death camps.
Yes. I didn't want to. I was trying to avoid the Nazi analogy, but that's where my mind was. All right, I was trying to do something besides there were good Nazis too. Thanks, Aradia. Now, great. Now I get to fuck.
Oh, I'm just warming you up for the awful comparison we're going to get to make in a few pages.
Oh, stop. Stop.
But yeah, no, it definitely was like RJ has presented the Seanchan as either like, people who beat, torture, and enslave our characters or who are actively like dark friends or who are like high and mighty nobles who are completely disconnected from like real life. This is the first normal, real person. No, it's the second normal, real person that we've met.
Egyanan?
Yep. Egyanan was our first person that actually felt likable. And she...
Excuse me, should we be calling her Lylewyn now?
She is Lylewyn. And she is undergoing a complete existential crisis and deprogramming from the radicalization of being a Seanchan in the course of losing her name and marrying Bael and all of that. And she's coming to realize that Seanchan needs to stop being slavers. She is in the process of doing that right now. And Tylee, notably, tells Tuon that she's going to need to figure out how to make an alliance with these people rather than fight them. Like, she kind of goes on the same arc as Egyanan, not about channelers, but about the Randlanders that she meets. Like, she goes on the same arc. So it's like, for the second time, we have a competent professional woman showing up, interacting with our main cast and going, I think we might be the bad guys. Or at least making some bad calls.
Yeah. It seems like, especially with the homeland falling apart, that the Seanchan really do have potential for redemption. And it's why I wish Sanderson, I just wanted him to go into it more. We needed Matt to address it. We needed Tuon to address it. We needed these sort of things to happen in the last few books that didn't happen when addressing these things. Let's talk about the prophecy.
Okay, let's talk about the Seanchan prophecy.
When the Wolf King carries the hammer, thus are the final days known, when the fox marries the raven and the trumpets of battle are blown. So Wolf King carries the hammer, that's clearly, right, Perrin carrying the hammer. Even he recognizes himself in that prophecy, right? He's like, yeah, Hopper would laugh, but I am the Wolf King, clearly. There's nobody else.
Yeah, I'm a king with wolf powers. That's clearly what is. I'm not king of the wolves. I'm a king with wolf powers. But
Friend of the Dragon Reborn. Yeah.
There's a dragon. There's a wolf. Yeah. It's a thing.
It's a thing. It's not like his mind isn't like That's about as obvious as a prophecy gets. Yeah, he knows.
And he assumes it's about the hammer he currently carries. It's not. It's about Ma'alenir. When the Wolf King has decided to take up the hammer instead of the axe and has his magic hammer. At least the decision.
But this is the thing. He made the decision to throw away the axe in the last book. Right, so he is now I think that.
Oh no! Oh, you're right.
He carries just the hammer, not the hammer and the axe.
Okay, no, you're right. This is the hammer that replaced the axe when he made the call. You're right.
Yeah. So and because by the time he forges Ma'alenir, the last battle has begun.
Yeah, and also he uses, I believe, this hammer to make Ma'alenir, so it's very much the soul of this hammer does transfer to Ma'alenir. So it is one continuous hammer.
Doesn't the making of Ma'alenir ruin this hammer though?
It does. Yeah, the final blow, he like cracks it and he's like, it was a good hammer, but I had to give it up for this one. And so I do think that a little bit of this one is in
the spirit. Yeah, the spirit of this hammer is certainly in Ma'alenir because this hammer makes Ma'alenir.
But yeah, you're right. This is the hammer of the prophecy in question. Yeah, and then when the fox marries the raven, also extremely obvious, somewhere between Matt beginning the ceremony and Tuon finishing it is the moment in question.
Oh, see, I was going to go with when the Finn capture Lanfear, because Lanfear as a dark friend is a raven and the fox are the Aelfin, right? So
do they marry?
I'm being bullshitting here again.
Okay.
Yeah, clearly. Obviously it's when Matt marries Tuon, right? Like this has got to be what Jordan's like, all right, listen, I've been subtle for a while, guys. The last battle is coming. Here. Let me tell you.
I swear, any one of these books, it could happen. And then the one thing I was curious about was the trumpets of battle are blown. Is that a reference to the horn specifically?
Yes. I mean, there's so many times when trumpets are blown in battle. It's like constant. There's the Trolloc horns. There's the horn of Valir that's been blown once and will be blown again. I think that's just a general, like, hey, there's a lot of people fighting.
Okay.
There's just a lot of fights going on, like all over the world.
Okay, yeah, because I was like, it could be that, or it could be specifically the Horn of Valir. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think it's more referencing to just there's a lot of fights. Everybody's fighting. Everybody was kung fu fighting is basically, I think, what we're going with there.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, so she thinks it's all very enigmatic and confusing, and we're like, this is about as subtle as being punched in the face.
Right.
We also get a callback to Book 8. On the heights, the paths are paved with daggers. Mishima just kind of drops that in conversation like it's a casual axiom. And it's funny because
I blew right by that.
Yeah, it's because Robert Jordan put it there like, oh no, it's a Seanchan saying. And like he never actually puts Seanchan sayings like that into the text except for this one time. This one time he's like, yeah, no, it's totally a Seanchan saying. See, I told you 4 books ago. Why do you doubt me? Or 3 books ago. Usually he'll have it closer to the book in question. It's just so many books ago was when Path of Daggers happened.
Right.
It's like, it's been forever since I've thought of the term Path of Daggers. Yeah, so they're doing their little verbal sparring thing. Berylene is being like, I will make my claims to my space and my space alone. And, they're doing their little posing and posturing thing. And then Perrin's like, I would like to flare my little lizard hood thing and like do my full threat display. And he lifts up the branch and we get his full army's threat display.
Which is honestly one of the cooler moments, I think,
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I really like the whole, oh yeah, well, I can have my guys just, and he uses it against the White Cloaks as well, right? Because he does the whole shooting into a ditch and then burning a ditch, right? He just does a smaller version of it here.
Yeah.
To the branch.
It's a shot over the bow. It's showing them what they can do. Because as we were saying before, he is risking himself with the first volley, right? It's not just a show of brute force. It's also a show of skill. So first he shows off skill at range, and then he shows off having the magic that they can't have access to. So he's like, we are much more than just a one-to-one head-to-head fight. We are way outclassing you.
Skill and trust in his troops, right? How much you have to trust in your troops to have them shoot at your back, basically. And for them to be able to be like, whoops, I killed him, right? Like, that. How many generals would not trust their troops and give them that golden opportunity to take out an asshole of a general?
Yeah. Either by accident or on purpose. Like, there's just so much skill and trust. So much skill and trust. And then it gets manipulated by magic that they can't sense. They can see it because the branch doesn't obey gravity, and then it bursts into flame. But like, there was nothing for the Marath Damani to feel, and that is a message.
Nori, the Suldam, do we know anything about her?
Nori, no. I believe this is the only time she shows up.
Let me look that up. Yep, that's it. So then he offers essentially. He's basically like, there's this whole thing about trust where they both have armies in the bushes, right? And he offers to give up Manetheren, his claim on Manetheren, so they will fight with him and trust him. Which, doesn't he not give that? I mean, like, what? I like that he never follows through. Like, that's a really weird thing to give up because he doesn't follow through on that, even though they do help him. Like, Manetheren comes back. Basically,
she doesn't give the banner back at the end of the battle, or does she?
Oh, maybe she does.
I feel like she does because they do meet after the battle and talk.
Then maybe she gives him back his right.
And
to
I
Manetheren.
want to say that she gives it back for some reason. Someone in chat, help me out here. Because even here, as they're negotiating, she offers to give it back when it looks like they're not going to be able to fulfill the terms of the bargain. She's very legal. She is lawful. She is lawful as fuck. Whether you want to say she's good or evil, she is lawful. But yeah, what he's doing is he's not offering to give up the land to Seanchan control. He's offering to give up the banner around which resistance would rally. And he phrases it as, you could be the one who cleared a field of brambles without a drop of bloodshed. And Tylee agrees with him. Like, that would be brambles underfoot with no shoes on.
Just a quick look at the end of the battle. I don't see anything about her giving the banner back to him.
Because they do help. I mean, I don't see why she would give it back from how I remember the battle goes. There's no reason for her to say, oops, we didn't do our part.
Right. So.
But I think what it is, though, is that he does follow through on it because he never calls it Manetheren.
I guess, not till after the last battle, at least.
Exactly. And that's all that's really relevant because what he does, because he never wanted Manetheren. He doesn't want to revive Manetheren. He's afraid that Elaine will wage war on him if he revives Manetheren. So he sees this as a way to defuse that bomb forever. And Fail is able to basically be like, fine, then we'll make a new nation out of the two rivers where Manetheren stood. It will give it a new brand. But it's Manetheren. Let's be real.
Yeah,
it's Manetheren. We're just calling it the two rivers now. I also want to, I'm sure everyone has noticed that Perrin offers this thing up and suddenly the wind gets fucky.
Yeah. And that's the wind from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
From chapter 1, that's the fucked up wind coming down from Sheol Ghul, right?
From Dragonmount.
Dragonmount, sorry, not Sheol Ghul.
Yeah,
Dragonmount.
and that grit, Perrin wonders where the grit came from. That's little bits of volcanic ash and scoria and pumice getting blown all the way from Dragonmount.
That's the grave of Dragonmount. Because, we are coming to that decision point that Rand has to make from the Peak of Dragonmount, where he will possibly destroy the world from the Peak of Dragonmount.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I've said this before, but I really do think that is the last battle, right? More so, once Rand has come to his Veins of Gold moment, the last battle is inevitable. He's won that.
Yep. It's just a matter of follow through. But yeah, this is this is, yeah, the ashes from the old grave are stirring. There's these little wisps of wind like moving around as this massive storm builds up. Like, here, it's beginning. It's beginning. And I like that it shows up at Perrin in a moment when Perrin is doing something that ostensibly is weakening him for the last battle, right? That banner, the banner of Manetheren, is a thorn to the Dark One's foot and a bramble to his hand, and people being able to rally around it is part of how they have survived the onslaughts of the dark previously. Like, this is not good for the light for them to give up this banner.
Well, I would say that maybe making an alliance with the Seanchan to fight is actually good for them, and that this is the, they're like rattling, being like, oh no, don't do this, but I don't know.
I mean, it works out well, but it's a really symbolic loss for the light to lose the banner of Manetheren specifically.
I can buy that.
Because, I mean, it's the wind is going to hit him at some point, but why not at a moment that is fateful and scary and like, oh no, don't decide that. But then Perrin's just like, you know what evil wind matters to me? Not at all. I do not care. I don't care about your prophecies. I don't care about this nasty wind. I don't care about ethics. All I care about is making this alliance to get my wife back. That's it. Just ignore the wind.
Yeah, and we've talked about how Perrin's head down focus on rescuing Fael is kind of how he unites all these people, right? He's driven, he has this purpose, and that's how he's bringing these people together. And there's a lot of weird shit going on in the world right now, and he's just like, nope, don't care. I'm ignoring it. And that could, on one level, I think Perrin's feels like he's neglecting things, but on another level, he's just like, you know what? That shit I can't address, and I'm not going to worry about it. And in a lot of ways, that's what a leader has to do, is say, we're worrying about what we can control.
Yeah, I mean, worrying about shit you can't control is not going to help you lead. Truly. Like, it doesn't help anybody at all, ever, but particularly not as a leader. You have so much shit to think about if you're going to be in charge. You have to worry about what you can control and let the rest go.
So the two forces withdraw. Perrin does his thing where he just yells withdraw. Everyone else uses a horn, and Perrin's like, I got my voice. I'm good. I'm loud enough.
He's a big man with bellows for lungs. And they start talking logistics. He negotiates that all of his channelers have to be kept safe from callers, and nobody can be kidnapped from his side, which is like, thank you for thinking of that and not forgetting about that in the quest to get your wife.
And I love this little bit where she's like, oh, these white-robed guys shine really make good Daco Vale. And he's like, they will for a year. A year and a day. And then after that, he's like not saying anything, but he's like, after that, they're going to try and escape, because after that, they're not going to consider themselves Guy Shine anymore. They're going to go back to being warriors. And then you have warriors in among your camp that you're not letting go free. That's a problem for you.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm going to just not mention that. I'm going to just let those dragon's teeth fly.
And because they were probably all captured like at the same time on the same day, they're all going to break free on the same day.
Well, if you capture a Guy Shine, the clock on the Guy Shine doesn't reset. Their clock is for when they were captured as a warrior. If they get passed around, it doesn't reset anything. So they're going to be getting released at different times. But it's going to be real hard to fight out solo. So I could see some of them being like, you know what, let's all agree on this one day we all break out together. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a mess. A lot of Aiel are going to get killed figuring out the Seanchan are not playing around.
So I guess I was thinking that the Seanchan had captured the Aiel, and that's when they became Guy Shine. But no, you're right. That's a good point. These are only pre-existing Guy Shine that they've taken.
Yeah, because they've been capturing bands of Shido and dispersing them / capturing them, depending. They've been like, oh yeah, we're releasing all the national hostages that are not Aiel. We're keeping the other Aiel as prisoners. And yeah, the Aiel Guy Shine are great Daco Vale for some reason. This is awesome. And Perrin's like, yeah, okay, sure. But yeah, those all are the Guy Shine that the Shido already had from things like Dumai's Wells and other things. So they're all on different timelines. So a lot of them are probably from Dumai's Wells.
That's a good point.
So there will be a cluster of them that all get free at the same time. Or that all think they should get free at the same time.
And few of them are probably Shido. right? This is another
None
way in
of
which
them are Shido. Yeah.
the Shido are being eliminated, right? Because they are being killed off by the Seanchan, but their Gaishain are going to live. And those are non-Shido people that they've captured.
Oh, that's wild. Because the Shido weren't fighting the Shido, with the exception of a couple of maidens. All of those are non-Shido. I yell, oh, shit. I hadn't even thought about that. Wow, good catch. Yeah, that's going to be a mess.
Because I was thinking that the Gaishain were that the Seanchan captured the Shido became Gaishain.
Yeah, no.
That's not what's going on at all.
Because
No.
Seanchan don't understand how Gaishain works, so they're not putting their prisoners into white. But they're doing it, but they're going to be doing it like as Daku Vale, which is a completely different arrangement. But I do like that Perrin doesn't mention that. It's kind of like how Galena doesn't mention mud as the result of snowfall. It's just one of those like, I'm going to let you find that out for yourself. And then, yeah, Perrin mentions, that it's Savannah that he's going after. And Tylee is like, oh, good, because I already know about her. And I really want to capture her and present her specifically to my uppers.
Wait, you're telling me everyone who's encountered Shido finds her incredibly annoying and wants to do away with her?
Yeah, literally, if you come within spitting distance of these people, you will learn about Savannah, and nobody likes it. And then they talk about fighting Aiel in Amadisha.
Yeah.
And Mishima has this really rough sentence. You surround one of their bands, their septs, with 3 or 4 demani and pound them till they give up. It's a nasty business. They have their families with them, but they surrender the sooner for it. And if you can't draw a parallel to a thing that's currently happening right now on our tax dollar, you aren't paying attention. Just surround them and pound them till they give up. They've got their families with them, but it's okay because it'll make them surrender sooner when all their babies are dying.
One small difference. Here, when they give up, they stop the bombing.
Oh, fucking. Also, it's really hard to say who's the invader in this book situation because they're literally both invaders, out of their normal space.
Yeah, they're fighting over a space that neither one has. It's like...
So the parallel breaks down, but I read that and I was just like, that sounds way too much like shit I've been reading lately.
Imagine 2 colonizing powers fighting a foreign war on foreign soil and using the natives as...
Yeah, as people living in the United States of America, we have zero history of that happening. God.
So Perrin gives her the bad news that basically that's not going to work because all of the Wise One channelers are with Savannah, and we saw that happen, with the doorways, right?
Right. This is the confirmation of that, yeah, or reminder of that, I should say.
Reminder of that she took all the channelers with her through on one group because she knew she was going to, or suspected she was going to be betrayed, and so all those other groups have no channeling Wise Ones.
Right, and Tylee was like, yeah, this has been awkward. We've been confused about that. You're answering a mystery on our end.
Yeah, it's like, why has it been so easy to just do them in? I thought these Wise Ones can channel. It's like, nope. None of the ones except with this group. But then it's like, yeah, you have 400 channelers. And Mishima's like, yeah, I've seen a battle with 400 channelers on each side. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, so I witnessed World War I. I would like to not go into the trenches, please.
Yeah. It's like, oh, yeah, I've been on a place where there's huge 400, massive machine guns on each side. Not fun. Not fun to storm those beaches.
No. I was, I was watching videos about, I was studying in some medium, the Civil War the other day, and just, God, the scale of how did anyone live through that shit, man? Seriously. Every war I learn about, I think that, but it just... Yeah, Mishima is like, I am speaking as one of those insane people who actually survived a battle of that level of horror. And I'm telling you, I do not want to do that again. Is there any way we can stack the odds? And Perrin's like, I have magic tea. It will fix everything.
Well, technically you have magic tea, but we're going to go get
I have a plan for magic tea. Also, I have a get out of jail free card.
So She name drops the daughter of the Nine Moons, basically saying, I don't want to apologize to her. And we know from all the other references to apology that usually means, seppuku, right? It's committing,
or being sold into slavery.
Right. It's essentially death for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, either literal death or
slavery.
just social death. Yeah.
Yeah, just social death.
Yeah, which it seems like, I don't understand how your bureaucracy works if you keep killing off the officials every time they have to apologize for a serious fuck up.
Let's just say there's room for vertical movement in the Seanchan Empire.
I don't like that benefits package.
You move up fast and you fall fast.
Yeah.
As we've seen with Lywin, right? She was moving up the ranks quickly and fell just as quickly, right? There's a churn that's happening. And I was going to say underneath the royal family, but even the royal family, right? They're killing each other off to be the next empress.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's, they say that the empire is all ever victorious and amazing and awesome and shit, but also they've been racked continuously by rebellion and they maintain their rule through violence. So why should I assume that their bureaucracy actually works? Why should I assume that the trains run anything close to on time?
Well, and one of the reasons I think that the Seanchan are so locked in on their culture and ceremony is because it's very easy to die if you put a foot wrong, right? And so everything is very highly regulated. All social interactions are very tightly controlled. That way you're not going to offend somebody by following the rules, right? You bow this low, you say these words, you face this direction, and you will not be found out of line and killed, right? And so societies where it is very easy to become killed often have a lot more formalities and social rules because it's dangerous to step out of line.
So you're saying that just being able to wrestle but not die is a better form of government than being really polite and lethal?
Yes.
Just a good old-fashioned fist fight and then a beer afterwards is a better method.
It's why everyone's so polite in the South.
Polite, that's what we're calling it. But you're very right. The ritualized politeness that is absolutely not at all kind is a very Southern signature export.
Mm-hmm. That's the reason why the Seanchan have a Texas accent.
And Tylee and Mishima are described as having unintelligibly slurry
yeah,
drawls.
they're rural.
They are from the deep South. Yeah. I'm imagining it's so hard of an accent I can't even imitate it levels of drawl. He basically is I need all the tea. And they say, well, that seems like a bit much to be getting without some kind of note from the doctor or whatever. And he's like, what if I did have a blank note from the doctor?
Well, not just the doctor, the president of the doctors.
Right.
This is the person in charge of the return. And even though they don't know it, there's no empress left. So she's basically the person in charge. But
I mean, yeah, she is the final word on this side of the ocean.
Yes.
As far as they're concerned. I mean, they don't know about all the murders, but it's oh yeah, well, if Surath says, then there is no one who could countermand that over here.
Other than the daughter of the Nine Moons.
Right, who may or may not have arrived yet. Oh no, they know she's arrived.
Is she still under the veil?
She's still under the veil. But they know
that was my
she's
thought.
Coming. They know she's going to unveil at some point, right? So they can talk about her as when she's here.
Right. But as far as they know, she took off the veil with Matt at some point, but that wasn't communicated back.
No, she takes it off after she leaves Matt.
Right. Was it with the wedding, right?
Yeah, they get married, she leaves, and then after they part ways, she turns to her guard and says, I've removed the veil. If I die, I die as myself.
Got it.
So she hasn't removed it yet, but yeah, Tylee and they can all talk about her the daughter of the Nine Moons is around. She's going to show up at some point. But yeah, aside from her, nobody is going to countermand Surath. And I was thinking the same thing as what Lilijan's saying in chat, that he's really lucky Surath is so distracted right now, because this note could very easily have gotten him and everyone else killed. If she
it got
had
back
had,
to her.
Yeah, if she had the brain space to hear about this note getting cashed in at a manufactory.
In fairness, they only use it the once at the manufactory. They gateway in and out, so she would have no idea where they are anyway, and who knows how long it would take that note, information from that factory to get back to her.
That's a really good point. But he's still lucky that all the factors lined up.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, if you use that in the wrong place at the wrong time and she's able to notice, like, everyone you know is dead. Oh, Lillian's saying I'm wrong about the interpretation. She was thinking more so that because Soroth had fallen from grace, Perrin could have gotten in trouble for having a note from someone who's not cool anymore. That's a good point. If like a memo had gone out to everyone, hey, anyone associated with Soroth, like, kill them, capture them, punish them somehow for existing.
Right. But right now she's in total charge, right? She's basically rebelling against the Empress because she found out the Empress is dead. And so she's solidifying her power on this side of the ocean. That's why she's trying to kill Tuon.
Right. But, like, a week or two later could be a problem. Perrin has to get a move on to move this plan before Soroth becomes a dud player.
A little lore drop about forkroot tea. We get confirmation here that it works on a man or a woman.
Yeah.
Right? Because Perrin says, oh, you have tea that works on a woman. And Tylee says man or woman. Because he's got men who can channel, right? So we assume that that's been figured out somehow through the Seanchan testing, right? Like,
No, she says, I've heard of several men being caught that way. So it's happened. They've had men go drowsy just like a woman would go drowsy. And then when subsequent tests were performed, turns out.
This man can channel. Oh, okay. So yeah, and I don't think we've ever had confirmation. We've never seen a man drink forkroot tea yet.
Yeah, one would assume that a bunch of Aiel men in the Shido camp discover that they're channelers as a result of this, or could have.
Have we decided whether or not forkroot tea works on potential channelers who, learners who haven't actually channeled yet?
I always assumed it worked on everyone, no matter where you were at in your life cycle, because I was assuming that they were catching, latent learners. But I guess I don't know for sure.
Because does it take out the Suldam as well as the Damani? Do the Suldam get drowsy from this? Or is it just the Damani that are passed out? Because the Suldam have the potential to channel. There are learners who have never technically channeled.
Damn, I don't know. But they've also got the, like, weird half-trained and anything.
Yeah, the half-trained thing.
That's... I wish this was real so we could do a test. Interesting question. But I assumed that it was just sort of like how you would respond, like a food allergy or something. Yeah, chat's definitely on the, if you're partially trained, then you'd probably get drowsy thing. Maybe it's more like a histamine intolerance. Once you get to a limit, you get rashy or sleepy. Yeah, maybe.
I'm trying to think if we ever see a Suldam drink it. I don't think we do.
No, we hear about some brown Aja in the tower testing it, and we've got our heroes who consume it, and we've got this Shido, and everyone in the Shido camp. But yeah, there's never an instance of this being used on leash holders. So
yeah, it's something that's not answered, and something I think we could definitely debate about.
Yeah, I agree with Margot though that if men who don't know they can channel get sleepy, then Suldam would too. But that's the question: is it men who are hiding a known ability to channel,
right,
or is it men who didn't know? I always assumed that it was the latter, but like that's completely my own headcanon, I'm realizing.
And I'm thinking it would work on, the more I think about it, the more I think it would work on people who have not been trained, because that would be a good way to detect them, right? They just give it to a bunch of women, and the ones who pass out could be trained.
Yeah, once a year you taint the water supply for the city, or once a year you have like a mandatory tea ceremony or something, and then you just filter out everybody every year. God, so much more efficient than putting the leash on it. Just dose everyone with tea. But it wouldn't work well if it got all the Suldam. That would be awkward if the Suldam were knocking out too.
So I'm reading forums, trying to see if I can find anything. These forums are still debating whether men get affected by forkroot, so they're behind the times on that.
Here's a question: did the Seanchan have forkroot before, or did they also?
No.
Okay, so that's why they don't have any culture around it, or any science about it. They're
yeah. This is a new discovery. They got it here. They find it a useful tool, and so they are producing a lot of it as quickly as they can. But this is But yes, you're right. They do. You guys are I think Obi Thunder's got it right that they use it in testing. And so if they use it in testing, it has to work on women who don't know they can channel.
But they've only just acquired it as a tool, so it has not caught men and women in equal parts throughout history.
So then here's the question. If it catches Suldam, would then all Suldam in the future be collared?
They wouldn't have Suldam anymore. They just suddenly have Marath Damani and no Suldam, and the math would not math on that.
That would break it. That would break the system.
The seeds of their destruction are coming one way or another.
Right, one way or another, the Seanchan are just doomed.
They're doomed. Well, because it's a bad system. Don't enslave people. It's a bad system.
And yeah, I guess, you'd only have the existing Suldam. But they don't live that long, right? Because they're not channeling. They have normal lifespans.
Oh, you're right.
So you would very quickly have Damani that are long-lived, outliving the supply of Suldam. If you can't get any more, because Suldam will then obviously take forkroot. Yeah, I mean, it breaks down very quickly. But
in the time it would take for it to break down, they would still manage to ruin local economies with their cash crop nonsense of making everybody farm it for mass production. Because, there's an opium comparison being made in chat that I think is appropriate. East India Forkroot Company.
So I guess I think we're at the point now where it's time to read us out.
Unless you want to just debate the nature of making a deal with the Dark One first.
I mean, yeah, he's making a deal with the Seanchan.
Do we like our moral paragons saying that slavery is okay if it gets your wife back?
It's not my favorite compromise. I wonder how much Jordan's view of slavery is shaped by growing up in the South as a necessary compromise.
Did you know that Gareth Bryn's horse was named for Robert E. Lee's horse?
Yes, I did. Very much so. Gareth Bryn is essentially a Robert E. Lee analog.
I have so many questions, Robert, about why one of the great generals is not only a Confederate general, but historically noted as not that great. And if you need proof of that, listen to the latest Behind the Bastards 4-parter about Robert E. Lee.
Yeah, I've said this before, and I've talked about it a couple of times. Robert Jordan grew up in the South, and there is a lot of pro-South propaganda in the South.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah. And there's a couple of instances where I see stuff like that, slipping through. And it's like, I don't believe that Robert Jordan was like a pro, South Civil War type guy, but he did have a lot of pride in where he lived. He loved North Carolina. He loved the Citadel. He loved the South. There are parts of him that was clearly, his heart was in the U.S. South. And you can't celebrate that without also understanding that the U.S. South tried to secede and tried to keep slavery, right? So it's just like trying to separate those two is not necessarily possible in someone like Robert Jordan.
Yeah, and again, in the Behind the Bastards episode, they talked a bit about the mythology around Lee really extending to his horse, and his horse just became the paragon of all horsely virtue and the best horse that ever horsed. And I can definitely see a kid growing up on these stories getting saturated with the most perfect horse that ever horsed stories and just being like,
the most perfect general that ever generaled, yeah.
Like, I can just see where it's like the love of the horse feels like something you can keep, even if all the rest of it has to be understood with like an adult's intellectual caveat. It's like, but the horse, damn it, I can keep the horse.
It comes back to the, in the first book, he really venerates Mother Teresa as this incredible person, right? But if you know anything about Mother Teresa, you understand that her legacy is at best a mixed bag.
Right.
I don't blame Jordan for using Mother Teresa as an example of goodness and peace, because that is the culture he existed in. Mother Teresa was often used as this example of peace and love and nurturing, despite her actual legacy. And so I think the same thing is true for Robert Jordan's love of the South, right? Like, he loved the South, he loved where he lived, he loved the culture, he loved the things about it, irrespective of some of its, And I think there is something to be said. Like, I'm very northern, West Coast, right? Like, I lived in the South for a long time, but I don't believe in it. But, like, man, everywhere we live is built on tragedy, and you have to be able to love a little bit where you live. That's why you live there. And you have to understand, yes, the fact that this country exists, the fact that we live in a world defined by imperialism.
Yeah, the colonialism never stopped. Just got a neo in front of it.
It never stopped, right? Yeah. And so, like, how can I not love something? You know, no matter where I live, if I love something about it, it's going to be colored by capitalism, colonialism,
patriarchy, and white supremacy,
and all the other things. Yeah, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, right? So, like, fuck, let me, it's so hard not to want to enjoy things without understanding, like, yes, everything exists is soaked in these. Yeah, I said it earlier. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism, right? Like, how do you survive? How do you live in these worlds where you can't move without existing on the bodies of oppressed people? It sucks.
It's really awkward. I mean, you build a better world, but, like, it's a process. Right. And it's hard to hate everything about your life while you're living it. That seems to defeat the point.
It does. It's like, what? No, I'm going to love the things about my life that I love.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's, again, like, Robert Jordan clearly understands the broader, larger context because he made the Seanchan the bad guys.
Sure.
He's clearly not doing some Southern apologist shit. It's just...
Right.
Yeah, it's just interesting to have him talking all this deal with the devil shit while I've just like... But you named Gareth Bryn's horse Traveler. Anyway, Perrin is making a morally questionable choice because it's life and it's messy and it's time for the readout.
The Ashaman know a thing called traveling, Perrin told her, a way to cross hundreds of miles in a steppe. As for getting the tea, maybe this will help. From his left gauntlet, he pulled a folded, grease-stained piece of paper. Tylee's eyebrows rose as she read it. Perrin had the short text by heart. The bearer of this stands under my personal protection. In the name of the Empress, may she live forever. Give him whatever he requires in service to the Empire, and speak of it to none but me. He had no idea who Suruth Sibel Maldareth was, but if she signed her name to something like that, she had to be important. Maybe she was this daughter of the Nine Moons. Handing the paper to Marishma, the Banner General stared at Perrin. That sharp, hard scent was back, stronger than ever. I Sedai Ashaman. I yield your eyes. That hammer. Now this. Who are you? Mishima whistled through his teeth. Suroth herself, he murmured. I'm a man who wants his wife back, Perrin said, and I'll deal with the Dark One to get her. He avoided looking at the Suldam and Damane. He was not far short of making a deal with the Dark One. Do we have a bargain? Tylee looked at his outstretched hand, then took it. She had a firm grip. A deal with the Dark One, but he would do whatever it took to get Fael free.
Yeah, he's doing what looks like a bad thing, but as you pointed out at the beginning, this is the beginning of him forging an army that is extremely effective in winning the last battle. This alliance is the beginning of much more than just getting Fael back.
Yeah, getting Fael back is the first step towards winning the last battle for Perrin and this army.
Yeah, he's just like, first I gotta. It's Fael is his first I gotta before the last battle can happen.
All right, that's it. That's all I got. Thanks everybody. That was a fun one.
Yeah, that was a short and sweet episode.
Short and sweet. Yeah, short chapter. Not.
Yeah, not too much. It's just good fun, good clean characters having a good clean plot time.
And Perrin's making progress. This is actually, he is planning out the assault. He is getting the forkroot that is going to lead to him getting his wife back. We are now not just watching the Shido. We are actively doing things that is going to bring this plot line of now 4 books into it to a conclusion. Yeah. It's happening, and it's awesome, and it's fun, and we really appreciate you all for joining us here at What Spoilers for another episode. Remember to check out our other podcasts and to not plant anything yet because it's still winter. False spring has passed. We are back to winter, which is happening. You want to start your seeds inside, maybe, right? This is a good seed start time, depending on the plant. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're the kind of person who has that much ability with plants. I am not. And, yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Okay, so I want to start, before I forget, with my announcement for people that we were sort of talking about in chat a little bit. But now we've got recording on. I want to tell everyone that starting in March and continuing however long it takes, on Tuesdays, everyone in the Patreon feed is going to start getting old episodes in an ad-free feed. So if you want to re-listen to the old episodes, have a re-listen, a spoiled listen of the Spoilers podcast. Or if you've joined us recently and you enjoy the ad-free feed and don't want to go back and listen to ads just to get to the old stuff, we're going to start changing that. I'm going to be putting up episodes that are about 3 hours long. So however many episodes fits into roughly 3 hours every Tuesday. And you will just get that until we roll all the way forward. I'm going to start right back at the beginning at New Tangents, episode 0, and we're going to move forward chronologically in time. So you're going to get effectively 2 episodes if you're a Patreon. This won't affect people who aren't Patreons, so sorry, this isn't about you. But for Patreons, you will be getting effectively 2 episodes a week should you care to do a re-listen. And that will be starting in March.
And they're, old episodes. They're not new episodes. You've probably listened to them before, but this way they're at least ad-free.
I've had people say they want to go back and re-listen
to
episodes they've heard before. That's these people, for some reason, want to listen to things they've heard before. It's like they like knowing how the story ends or something. It's kind of strange. I don't understand it personally.
Yeah.
But...
and I'll admit, this is probably something we should have had rolled out before we even started doing ads. I do kind of feel like it's maybe... but we just didn't plan. We didn't really think about it. It was just, we're only 2 people. And sometimes, the idea that adding ads means that the patrons wouldn't be able to go back and listen to ad-free stuff because we hadn't been adding it all along because we hadn't planned for ads. It's it's a really bit of a it's a wheel of a catch-22. There's
it's we're learning in real time in front of all of you.
Right.
We have no idea what we're doing.
Nope.
Everything we learned on the job, in public, on record for all time. So thank you for your patience, and thank you to everyone who did reach out and express that they wanted that, and also just to full accountability. Full disclosure, the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to learn how to build a website. I need to build a website for my podcast editing business desperately. I have been trying to do it forever, and it's a mess. And I tried so hard that I started doing something else that I've been procrastinating on. So full ADHD, autistic brain disclosure. That's what's happening. I will have a website eventually, but after this gets done, maybe, or at least, not done. And probably after I finish Eye of the World.
And I promise I've offered to help, but she wants to do it herself, so
my husband has the ability to be my IT department. If I don't use him to help me build it from the ground up, I'm screwing myself out of 24/7 access to IT.
Yes.
It's just for some fucking reason, I'm I'm going to do this. And then the next thing I know, I am 5 hours deep into a different project.
Did you ever ask him what website he uses to host his?
No, I don't want to do this so badly. I haven't asked him. I have remembered I should ask him every minute of every day since you told me that. But have I done it? No, because that is how this fucking pervasive drive for autonomy bullshit works.
That sounds like me with business taxes. Every year, I know I'm gonna get them done early. I swear to God, up and down. I've got all the numbers pre-prepped. I know exactly how much money we've made. I know exactly how much money we've spent. And every year, it's a scramble to get them done by the last minute.
Yeah. The PDA profile just really makes things complicated. And learning the names for this, learning the mechanisms, being able to see cute little diagrams about how this works, just adds to the frustration because I can see myself doing it, but I can't fucking change it.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that frustrating?
It's so frustrating. Like, knowledge is awful. Never learn anything. Ignorance is, in fact, bliss. Anyway, that is why you're getting these episodes. It's because my brain is a nonsense machine.
And just a PSA, I've been fighting a bit of a cold, so if I sound a little funny or if my words don't make sense this episode, that's why. That's the entire reason. There's no other reason why my words would be wrong or make sense. Not make sense. Whatever I'm trying to say. You get it.
So we're off to a great start.
As I mute my microphone so I can blow my nose.
I love how that mutes it for both recordings.
Yes.
For the audience, for me, for Audacity, for everything. You're just muting the mic.
I'm muting the mic.
Bam,
I want absolutely none of that sound making it anywhere into the digital space. Like that diaphragm, it ain't even, it's vibrating, but none of those signals are getting through to the computer. It's fine. That's why I like a physical button on the mic as opposed to like a mute button on some piece of software, which a lot of mics don't have. I gotta say this: the Blue Yeti, which was a gift from our Patreons, was from a patron in particular. Insert name here. I really has held up really well and has been a remarkably a good. You finally switched over to a Shure microphone, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
You've been living without it for a while now.
It does not have the button.
No.
Yes, I've been using it for a while. I've been using it for over a year now, maybe coming up on 2 years. It's been a while. It's gone through a couple of signal chain changes. I've changed the signal chain out from under it a couple of times, but the mic itself has been doing pretty good for me for probably like a year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it works. I'm still not as good at knowing how sound things work and making them good but
Yeah, I feel like there's a very particular tutorial class in sound design that you and I somehow have not figured out how to take, and yet we've hacked together all this sound stuff on our own, and yeah, it may not always be the most professional.
It's a wild indie industry, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
I have learned from trying to study it and trying to get deeper into it. I'm learning that everyone is doing their own thing from their own angle. And only audio nerds can tell who's a pro and who's not. Everyone else is just like, well, yeah, better than I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's 99% of the audience is out there. So, like, so many people come into it from radio or from music, and they profess to know nothing. And then other people just hack it by watching YouTube videos. And, like, 99% of people can't tell the difference. Like, only audio nerds with trained ears can even tell. So it's like, on the one hand, of course, you want your product to be the best because you want it to be like, hitting their ears in all the right ways and like not being subconsciously annoying and all these things. But at the same time, like, you do have to zoom out and realize that most people are like, it's a podcast that comes out every week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's wild how much you can just teach yourself, and only real professionals will even be able to tell that you aren't a real professional. Everyone else will be like, yeah, seems legit.
I was just listening to some YouTube videos the other day, and there was a persistent hum behind one of the voices, which is obviously just a filter gone wrong, right? Where it's like whatever frequency when she was hitting with, I think, her ends was causing a buzz in the mic. And I was like, yep, and I'm like, this is a professional podcast, not even podcast, professional YouTube produced channel. And somewhere in the signal chain, they're getting a buzz on their ends. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. All right. Is that enough shop talk?
I think so.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?